Hey, what's up you guys? So in this video I'm going to be showing you how to get the wheel wobble out of your front wheel. So we're going to go from this to this. Okay. Let me show you how it's done. First, of course, we're going to take the wheel off. And I'm just going to use it to prop up the chassis. We'll pop this off. And we'll go ahead and take this pin out. And this shim. Now we're going to take our 2mm hex and remove the lower A-arm pin. And I have a little shim in mine, so that's going to fall out right there. And now we're going to remove the dog bone. So this is where the issue lies. So I'm going to grab the end here, and as you can see, this shaft, hopefully you can see it, is moving up and down within these bearings. Now when you upgrade to aluminum here and you have these bearings, this is metal on metal contact, and these two companies don't communicate with each other, of course. So there's very, very slight tolerances within the bearings that allow this to move. And while it doesn't seem like much here, when it's extended out to the end of your wheel, it really translates to a lot of wheel wobble. So we're going to move this block out of the way. We're going to remove that shaft. One of the bearings came out with it. That's fine. We actually want to access the bearings. So what we're going to do is add just a very, very small strip of tape around the bearing. You don't want any longer of a width than the width of the bearing. So we're just going to apply that to the outside like this. And that strip there only took up roughly half the size of the bearing. Okay, so we've got some of the tape hanging off the side. We're going to use hobby knife, X-Acto knife, whatever you want to call it, and be careful not to cut into the rubber cover there, but just use the knife to cut away the tape that's hanging over. There we go. So now with that, here we'll insert this in the front. It should be very, very tight, but that little bit of tape is just enough. You press that in and it fills up that space. And we can even go in here and remove that little bit of tape that came off, that slid out. There we go. So now I'm just putting this on this side just to test. Of course, we still have a little bit of wobble because there's only one bearing in there. Let's do the same thing to this next one. And rather than trying to use this cutter here, I'm going to take my scissors Get rid of that piece. That way I can more accurately cut a thin strip off. Now we can even use the edge of the scissors as kind of our alignment tool. Just roll that tape on. And I know it's such a thin amount, but check this out. I'll go ahead and insert this into the back. And now we'll put this back on. And that is just, that has taken out so much of the wobble. And of course the bearing still acts as it should, because that metal on metal content, that's not what's spinning. It's the balls inside of the bearing that's rotating around. So now we'll take our dog bone, install that back on. And we gotta turn our block here back over. So some other things that I've done, and I covered this in another video, but I've put some shims and rubber grommets in between these two blocks, and that kind of takes out some of that up and down movement. But this video is kind of specific to, this part of the video is kind of specific to the bearings. So we've got that. I'm going to put my shim, I'm going to use a different shim for this part. I'm going to drop it back in here, and these shims are so small, that's why I've got these tweezers. Now the other thing that I do is I'll put the stock shim back on, then I'll also add as a 0.1 millimeter shim on as well. That's just enough to fill up a tiny little space between the pin and the other shims. We still want this pin to move freely left and right. Hopefully you guys can see that. Right? But we've taken up a little more of that gap. You definitely don't want that to be tight. Pop that back on, and we'll grab our wheel. Let's tighten this down, and then I'll show you the difference. Look at that. It has taken it out completely. So now it's the same as this side. Now any movement, so we've taken the wobble out of the steering. If you guys have been following along with the build, we've taken the wobble out of the steering by doing our trick with the pivot balls, and now we've taken it out of there. And so now it should drive like we set it up, and it shouldn't, you know, as you're driving down the road, kick one way and stay to the left or stay to the right after you've steered that way. With all of the upgrades that we've done, I think the steering is going to be really dialed in. Alright, if this quick little video helped you out, be sure to let me know by leaving a like, subscribe if you want to see more content like this, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. Alright, one last tiny update. I was able to use this servo horn because the servo saver and this horn, I guess with the plastic, it just had a little bit too much play left and right and forward and back. So got this on, and now it's is so on there. There is hardly any play in there, so really happy with that. And because this sticks out a little bit, I was able to get the screw on the backside, and now that's even more parallel than what it was before, and there's no fitment issues. I did have to use, I didn't have the right screw around here, but I used a spacer out of an Arrma vehicle actually, and put that on there, and that worked out perfectly. So axial servo horn, Arrma spacer onto a Savic servo in this Traxxas 4-Tec. Gotta do what you gotta do sometimes. All right.